Good afternoon, everybody. So let me see real quick. I have Ingrid, Amaya. It's Emily, right? I think I remember your name from last workshop.
Yep, that's me.
Angelica, Dylan. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Dr. Glover, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Programs for Beacon of Hope. I've also been the interim Future Center Director at Heritage High School for a lot of this year. And our topic for today is scholarship tips and tricks. It's not going to be a super long presentation. I'm going to go over, well, actually, let me just go to the next slide. I'm going to go over three different things. The first thing is going to be scholarship searches, how we're going to maximize or how you can maximize your scholarship search process. The second thing is going to be some tips and strategies for scholarship essays and writing scholarship essays. And if you went to, or excuse me, not went to, but viewed one of our previous workshops on college admissions essay writing, these tips are the same. We're just going to talk about some minor differences for scholarship essays. But I don't think it's bad to review those tips either, because it still differs from regular school writing. And then the last thing is we're going to talk about Beacon of Hope's Stay Close, Gofar Scholarship. Many of you may already be aware of that scholarship, but we want to reemphasize that over and over again to make sure that everybody knows what it is and how to access that money if that's what you desire. So on with me for this workshop, I have Ms. V. Many of you probably know Ms. V from EC Glass, the Future Center Director. And then I have Mrs. McQueen, the Director of College Success. So she used to be the Future Center Director at Heritage. Now she is the one that when you go off to college, she follows you and keeps track of you and stays in contact with you and makes sure you get what you need to be successful in college. So to get started, excuse me, the first question I want to make sure everybody knows is what are scholarships? And I simplified it a whole lot. It's free money. And what I mean by that is you do not have to pay it back. So scholarships and grant funds are financial aid forms that you can get from different organizations or schools, and you do not have to pay them back like you would loans. So anytime you're able to apply for scholarships or get scholarships is a huge benefit to you financially, simply because it does not accrue interest and it lowers your bottom line for what you're going to spend on your college education. But the key question most students want to know is actually, what are some tips for getting scholarships? So the first thing I always recommend to students is to have an organizational strategy. Now that's going to look different for every student depending on what your strategy or your personality is, but make sure you have some sort of plan that includes searching, applying, tracking, and verifying. So you want to have a strategy for searching for scholarships. And once you search for them, you're figuring out what are the deadlines, what are the dates that they're due, making sure you're putting that in one document so that you can see that. Keeping track in the same document of when you actually apply for those scholarships so you know which ones you've done, which ones you still need to do. And then once you apply, you want to track those scholarships. They might tell you when they're going to announce a winner. You might have to keep checking back. You also might want to check in with the organization to make sure they received your materials. And then lastly, just verifying, which is part of making sure they're receiving your materials, but then also verifying when the scholarship award would be released and when you would be notified. The second tip is to start local. So when you're organizing your plan, I recommend that you start local for your scholarship search first, which means look for the organizations and the companies in your community. It could be things like the Lynchburg Education Foundation, which I highly recommend all of you look at because they have scholarships listed on the LCS website that you can apply for. In fact, if you're a senior, some of those are still open. They're closing within the next few days. Look for organizations and companies or businesses in the area like Pacific Life, like even national companies like Pacific Life or Wells Fargo that might have local scholarships. Places like the Women's Club of Lynchburg or the Rotary Club. A lot of these organizations have scholarships that you can apply for, and they are specifically focused on attracting and giving scholarships to local students. It's not like people from outside the community are going to apply and receive these. They want these to go to students in the community. Second thing, if you know which colleges or universities you're interested in, you can always check with the financial aid office for those college or universities. So they have resources on their websites, and their counselors can also help guide you to available scholarship and grant opportunities either from that college or either resources that they have available in their communities or that they know of that other people have access to. So they can at least point you in the right direction for resources to look at. And then the last tip is to go broad. So you're really starting small, then you're going a little bit bigger to your colleges, and then you're going broad. So do broad internet searches. You can simply type in like specific or unique traits or characteristics about you, and then the word scholarship after that, and just start using Google searches. The next slide, I'm actually going to show you some websites where you can sign up for scholarship emails and newsletters. And what you're going to do for a lot of these websites is you fill out a profile, and the profile will ask you all these different criteria and different traits about yourself. And when a scholarship pops open that fits that criteria, they will send you an email to let you know to apply for it. So some of the most popular scholarship sites are fastweb.com, bigfuturecollegeboard.org, careerinfo.net, and goldendoorscholars.org. So what I want to do is actually bring up one of them. Can everybody still see my screen? Good. So this is fastweb.com. If you look on Fastweb's site, what you're going to do is if you go down and click start your search, it's actually going to have you click on you'll be a student. You're going to fill out your account, and then I'm not going to do it right now, but once you open your account, it's going to get you to create a profile with different interests and different characteristics, different extracurricular activities, and then those things are going to send you emails and updates. If we go to a different one, bigfuture.collegeboard.org. Just scroll down and go to search all scholarships. And once again, this is another thing you can fill out where you're going to click start. You can search for them using a lot of different filters based on sex, citizenship, state of residence, all these different demographic characteristics. And then you would continue to go through 4 pages of different characteristics that will help you narrow down scholarships that you might be able to apply for. And when you use Google, honestly, like I was just poking around on Google yesterday, you can do something as simple as, like I said, just think of something that you are specifically passionate about, or that's a trait that might be somewhat unique to you. Type in those phrases or those words and then click scholarship. So yesterday I simply did like, say you're interested in spoken word poetry. I just typed in spoken word poetry scholarship, and then it popped up a list of different scholarships that people can win if you're interested in spoken word. They even have scholarships for things as trivial, or maybe you don't think it's trivial, but things as small as being left-handed. There's all different types of scholarships everywhere. The biggest thing that I will emphasize, and what I'm going to go over now, is a few other tips for once you figure out where you want to search, once you narrow down your scholarships that you want to apply for, is being diligent. So here's a few other things. First of all, start early, because a lot of scholarships, particularly, your large scholarship applications for more money, a lot of those are actually due in the fall before you go to college. So you want to make sure you get an early start on those. You do not want to rush those. You also want to make sure you're checking ahead of time, because if you're looking for big money, a lot of those have to be submitted early. Second thing is go ahead and think about adults that you would like to get letters of recommendation from. Teachers, counselors, people that work with you, in extracurricular activities, coaches. It could be a boss at a job. It's always good to have at least some educational ones though, but you want to ask these people early and make sure that you're going to pick people that will write you good recommendation letters. If you have a problem with a teacher, or you don't get along with the teacher, even if you don't really have a problem with the teacher, but they don't know you very well, it's probably not best to ask that person. Some teachers will just tell you if they don't think it would be a good idea for them to write you a recommendation letter. I've had to do that before. If I don't think I can write a good one, I'm not going to write it. But some people will feel bad and don't want to turn it down. So you want to make sure you get stellar recommendation letters, and these things take time to write well, especially when adults are already busy with lots of other things. So make sure you ask early and you start planning who you want. The third tip is to be thorough. Make sure you review your applications. Make sure you take your time, get somebody else to review them if you have to. You do not want to have errors in your applications because that looks poorly, especially when you have multiple other people competing with you. And then the last thing is to be diligent. So I will say this and I will say this and I will say this again. There are a whole lot of scholarships out there, but there's also a whole lot of people applying for scholarships. So if you apply for a few local ones, or even if you apply for a few national ones, you get turned down and you give up. That's not the strategy for getting extra financial aid for your college future. You have to be diligent and continuing to apply to as many scholarships as you can. You are not going to win every single one of them. I guarantee that. But the more you apply for, the more you have a chance of getting more money. So I know we have a lot of tips, or I have a lot of tips and suggestions, and I have 9 more for you, but these 9 are specifically focused on your essay. So once you have narrowed down your college scholarship search, once you have a plan, once you're working on those applications, we want to make sure, particularly, not all of them, but a lot of them require essays. So we want to make sure you have some strategies or some tips for writing those essays and things to consider. A lot of these things, like I mentioned in the introduction, are actually very similar to writing a college admissions essay. The key thing to remember is both of these types of essays are a much more narrative format than you would write like a research paper. That's more structured and more formal. These are more narrative and more storytelling, and they are in first person. So you're talking about yourself. You're not writing about yourself as you're detached from your experience. So the first tip or strategy is to be creative. Think about what makes you unique or what story you could tell about your life. It can be everyday things. You could take one little small aspect of your life and then draw it out with tons of details to make a compelling story. The second tip is to be authentic. So even on paper, of course in person, but even on paper, a lot of times we can tell when people are trying to impress us too much, or when we're not really being fully honest about who we are. We're trying to say what we think other people want us to say. Don't worry about that. The goal is for you to be who you are, focus on what is important to you, and then the review committee, will judge based on that. And it comes across much better because it doesn't come across as a tailored answer to what you think people want to hear. The third thing is to be reflective. Make sure when you're writing your essays that you're not just telling information, you're not just relaying information. The goal is to think about, what did you learn? How did that experience make you feel? How did you grow? So you're reflecting on whatever you're writing about and talking about how it changed you as a person. The fourth strategy is to be specific. Make sure you answer the question directly and use examples. So I used to teach at Heritage High School, and then I actually currently also work at University of Lynchburg as an adjunct professor. And I say this to students at every level that I work with. If you are writing an essay, you have to be specific. Nobody wants a generic or a vague answer. Make sure you're answering the question directly, and then you are using examples to support what you're actually saying. Anecdotes or stories, if you want to tell a story, those are excellent for this type of essay. Be passionate about what you're writing about. So I would not recommend writing about something if you can't write about it passionately, because that comes through in the paper. So if you pick something, once again, because you think somebody wants you to write about it, or that's what they want to hear, or you really just don't know what to write about, it's time to go back to the drawing board and think about something else because that passion needs to come through the paper. Next strategy is to be prepared. So read essays from other people. So a lot of times you can actually go to organizational websites. Depending on the organization, you can see past applications for grants or scholarships. You can even talk to people that won these scholarships in the past, see what they did. I wouldn't even think it's a bad idea. It doesn't hurt to even reach out, particularly to a local organization, to build a relationship with these people ahead of time, figure out what specifically they are looking for before you even apply. And then, of course, you can always research other strategies and writing tips online or with your teachers or counselors or us. And then the last 3 tips, one is to be original. So not every scholarship application, but a lot of scholarship applications receive tons of responses. And so they're reading and sifting through a lot of essays. So make sure you think about something that will make you stand out. So one suggestion we have is to stay away from stories of sports and travel. So not that these are bad stories, a lot of people are changed or influenced by sports and travel. That's super important. The problem is everybody else shares about that too. So you want something that sets you apart, and people get tired of reading the same thing over and over. Be efficient. Try to structure your essay, if possible, to be used multiple times for either admissions, essays, or other scholarships. So depending on the question, now if it's a very unique, very specific question, you wouldn't be able to do this. But if the question is broad enough or open-ended enough, you can often tailor your essay to where you can submit it for multiple different applications so you don't have to keep rewriting something with a different topic. And we recommend that to be efficient, save your time and save your energy. And then the last thing, once again, is to be thorough. So proofread and make sure you proofread again. We read applications and essays. I've read essays constantly that still have errors all over them. And that does not show a scholarship committee that you care enough to actually be diligent in proofreading. It does not show them how much you want the scholarship. It does not show them your potential. So make sure you read through and proofread everything, get somebody else to read it for you as well. So the main things I want to emphasize for the differences between scholarship essays and admissions essays. First of all, you can probably use a lot of these essays for the same, for scholarships and for admissions requirements. But you have to be careful, one, about the question. You have to answer the question directly. So if an admissions essay talks about one thing, the scholarship essay is talking about something that's different, slightly or very different, you need to make sure you tailor your response to that question specifically. Do not try to force one essay to fit a question that it's not meant to fit. The second thing is make sure you change the recipients in your essay. So if you write a college admissions essay, it's addressed to the college, it's talking about the college or the school, why you'll be a good asset, or it's even just addressed to the school. You want to make sure you go through and change every instance of where that is addressed or written in that essay where you reference that specific school, because you don't want it to look like you just copied and pasted something. Make sure you change the recipients to reflect the scholarship organization or application if necessary. At the minimum, make sure you take out that college or university that you had in there previously. And then the other thing to consider is, in a lot of college admissions essays, you're not necessarily writing about monetary need. It may be appropriate depending on the circumstance of the question. But for scholarship applications, a lot of times organizations in part are looking for what is your financial need. And so it is very appropriate to figure out how to include this in some of your scholarship applications and write about how the money would benefit you or how it would help you meet your goals in the future. So before I get Mrs. McQueen to talk about our Stickless Gofar Scholarship, I'll just emphasize once again, 100% of students who don't receive application-based scholarships, 100% is in the percentage of students who don't receive application-based scholarships when they never applied for them. And the 0% is just the flip side of that. And the point is, if you never apply, you're not going to know whether you would have received money. You're not going to get the money. So some scholarships you are going to be able to get without applying. Some colleges will offer you scholarships, but a lot of the ones you're looking for extra funds, you will have to put in the work. You will have to apply. You don't even put in that work. If you don't stay diligent, then you're not going to get anything. So make sure you're planning early and make sure you are strategizing how you want to go tackle those different areas. Mrs. McQueen,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Doing good.
Good. Would you mind filling our students in to make sure they know about the Stay Close, Go Far Scholarship through Beacon, please?
Absolutely. And since we have a mixed group, I'm actually going to talk to you about the 2 scholarships that we have with Beacon of Hope, our Stay Close, Go Far Scholarship and our Commonwealth. I'll start with Stay Close, Go Far. It is for every Lynchburg City School student through the class of 2024. The only thing you have to do is you have to have attended LCS 9th through 12th grade. You have to complete the FAFSA, which is a financial aid application that you'll fill out in October of your senior year. And you have to be enrolling in a full-time program. So in college, full-time is it's 12 credits or more, which is the equivalent to about 4 classes. And that might vary if you're joining a certificate program. It might look a little bit different than 12 credits, but at the end of the day, we're asking that all of our scholars are enrolling in a full-time program. So we can deal with those details as you guys approach your senior year. So what the Stay Close, Go Far Scholarship entails, it's either free community college or up to $8,000 at our 4-year partners. And those schools include University of Lynchburg, Randolph College, Sweetbriar, and the University of Lynchburg. Also, did I say Lynchburg twice? Liberty, Lynchburg, Sweetbriar, and Randolph, as well as
Central College of Nursing.
Yep. So those are all of our partner schools. And Liberty actually has an additional $8,000 that they give to our scholarship recipients that strictly goes towards room and board. So it's something that can be used towards your meal plans for the 4 years that you're at Liberty. And that's it for Stay Close, Go Far. It's a pretty short application. It will be due May 15th of your senior year. It's an application that opens up in October, so you have plenty of time to work on it. The Future Center directors are at Heritage and Glass to help you get that information in as well. And we want you to take advantage of those scholarships that are available to you. So that's Stay Close, Go Far. On the other hand, we have our Commonwealth Scholarship, which is competitive. So Stay Close, Go Far, any LCS senior, as long as they've been in LCS 9th through 12th grade. But the Commonwealth is competitive. We only have 10 of those to give out, 5 to Heritage and 5 to EC Glass. And those go to colleges or programs outside of the Lynchburg area, accredited institutions within the state of Virginia. So that can go anywhere from Eastern Mennonite University to Virginia Tech to George Mason or James Madison. If you can think of it, you can name it. Our scholarship will more than likely apply to it. Stay Close, Go Far is $8,000. The Commonwealth Scholarship is $5,000. And you get to choose how you like that distributed at your particular institution. Again, it's competitive, same criteria as Stay Close, Go Far, LCS student 9th through 12th grade, complete that FAFSA, and enrolling in a full-time program. I think, Dr. Glover, I've covered all the highlights of the scholarship. At the end of the day, what you guys should know is that we have scholarship dollars available for you guys to use.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. McQueen.
Yep.
We have about 5 more minutes, and I want to make sure you all have a chance to ask questions, and also that Ms. V, excuse me. I didn't want to marry you. I didn't mean to marry you off. Make sure that Ms. V has a chance to offer some tips and strategies as well that she might have. But before we do that, I'm actually going to let her kind of close. So if you all have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat to any of us, Mrs. McQueen. Actually, it'll probably go to Ms. McQueen or Ms. V. You can chat them to me too, and then we'll try to answer.
All right. Well, Glad you all are here today. Chris, I like how you opened up with finding an organizational plan for scholarships, because one thing you'll find as you get into junior and senior years that there are a lot of different deadlines that you're balancing and juggling. And so being able to stay organized with your admission deadlines, your scholarship deadlines, and then any school-based deadlines will be really important so that you haven't worked hard on a scholarship and then for some reason overlook a deadline, or you get caught up in your other schoolwork and it passes you by. So that organizational plan is really important. And you can start working on that now and figure out what works best for you, whether it's something digital on your phone or if you still like using something paper and pen. You'll know what works best for you, and even having someone to help keep you accountable, like a parent or family member or friend, someone at the school, that can also be a helpful tip to give you personal reminders in addition to whatever notifications you might have set on your phone. And with that being said, December 1st is often one of the priority deadlines for institutional scholarships. So merit-based scholarships that are available at each college or university often get assessed in the fall semester. And so you have to have your information submitted to them typically by December 1st. So when you're reviewing the local scholarships and the institutional scholarships, that can be a good way to make sure you're not missing out on money that you could receive directly from the school that you are applying to. I see a few questions or chats. Here we go. I've been looking into private colleges, and VTAG has been frequently appearing. What is the VTAG? So VTAG is the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant, and any Virginia resident, so anyone who's living here in Virginia, is eligible to
Looks like Miss V dropped out.
it's usually around $3,500 that will add on to your financial aid package. But it's not, it doesn't automatically get added on. There's paperwork that you have to submit by July 31st in order to get it, but the money is guaranteed to you after you fill out that paperwork. And that doesn't require an essay, it just requires verification of your residency in Virginia. That was a good question. All right. What are y'all's thoughts about sites like Chegg or Unigo for scholarships? Yes, any scholarship site that is free, I say go for it. If they're asking you to pay money to help you search for scholarships, that would be a scam. So scholarships are free to receive and free to apply for. Okay, applying for admissions is a different process that does cost, but applying for scholarships doesn't cost you any money. All right. And Sally Mae and College Board, I wrote this down, they have scholarship drawings every month. So if you make a profile on their sites, they'll automatically draw someone every month to receive a random scholarship that is just based on you making an account. So there are some like that as well to put your name in the hat for. Let's see. And then
I have a question too.
Get a scholarship. So, all right, go ahead.
No, you go ahead and finish, Ms. V.
Oh, okay. So how do I get a scholarship was the question. There are technically not necessary guarantees for some scholarships. So applying to as many as you qualify for and working on that essay, whether it's called a personal statement, which would be something you could probably use for admissions and scholarships, or if they have a specific prompt. The essay portion is a very strong factor in how scholarships are selected. So I would say to work on those things. And another way to help your scholarship applications are service hours, community service, getting involved, whether it's something digital right now or in person once we're able to do that again, finding something you're passionate about and really giving of yourself in a way that would be beneficial to others.
Good. Question I have from one student says, do you have to have been a student all 4 years in LCS for either scholarship? She's recently transferred into LCS. So in general, if we give a broad answer, it is yes, you do have to have been a student in LCS for all 4 years. The only, and Ms. McQueen or Ms. V, you can correct me too if I'm wrong, the only criteria that, or exception we would say, is if there's some extraordinary circumstance that prevented you from being a student in LCS for all 4 years, such as like a medical emergency or something of that nature. Ms. McQueen, did you have anything to add to that or clarification?
No, I think that's a good answer.
There is an appeals process if you think that you meet exemption from that residency, 9th through 12th grade in LCS, then there is information on that on our website.
Correct. Yeah, thanks for adding that.
I have another question that was messaged to me. It says, could I use scholarships for out of state? And so that is a great question. Each scholarship will say whether or not they have a specific place for you to use that scholarship or not. So any scholarships received from the exact school would obviously go to that school. But outside scholarships from an organization like ours or other local organizations or national organizations will tell you if they have a specific location to take your scholarship. So ours are Virginia and local based scholarships, but many of our local scholarships that you might see from our EC Glass and Heritage Scholarship coordinators that are, and the scholarship list that's on our school websites, many of those will let you take the scholarship out of state from our local scholarships. You just kind of have to read the fine print, one of those things. So I wouldn't, there's no one answer for that question, but each scholarship has their own criteria for who can apply and where you can spend the money.
Ms. V, your statement triggered something in my mind. We get a lot of students who ask where the money is going. And so to answer that question for you all, the majority of the scholarships that you receive will be paid directly to the institution that you're going to. However, there are some that will give you money, a check that's written out in your name that you can spend however you please, you know, whether it's on books or whether it's on some other need that you have before you go to school. So like Ms. V just said, it's important to ask the questions and read the fine print so that you know how that money will be distributed to you.
Good. Do you have any more questions? Anybody else? Excellent. So we are just a couple minutes over. I'm gonna go ahead. Did Ms. V or Ms. McQueen, do you all want to say anything else, or you good?
I'm good.
All right, I can add one more thing if
Okay.
anybody doesn't mind. Just one thing to close with in my gut instinct is just the perspective of show me, don't just tell me. So using your senses, making those words jump off the paper and come alive to the reader is really important. And you know, you could be as creative as you like to with your answer. I like to share the story of one year we had Dean Gregory from University of Virginia come in and lead our scholarship session and admission session in our back to school workshops. And she shares the story about how the essay prompt for UVA one year was, how do you feel about plagiarism and the honor code? And do you think stealing is okay? And this person answered, they were like, yes, I think stealing is okay. I've been stealing for most of my life. I've actually become very good at it. And the essay goes on and on and on about how they've really fine-tuned the art of stealing. At the end, they come through and say, you know, they play softball. Of course they've been stealing. So it doesn't lead your mind directly where you think it will, but it was a great way to show something you've been involved in, a skill that you had, and then kind of have something memorable for the scholarship readers to say, hey, that was really cleverly written. And so, you know, don't be afraid to kind of jump outside the lines and make it more into a story about yourself, still with that narrative format. We love to proofread. And so if you have any ideas and you want us to go over them with you, we would be happy to do that.
Correct. Yep. And that was actually going to be what I ended with. If you all want help with essays, with proofreading, with formulating ideas or brainstorming, we are here to help with that. And I would just say, you know, some people are afraid to reach out for help because you're afraid of the critique or the criticism. The goal in all this is just for all of us to get better. I had to go through it. Ms. McQueen had to go through it. Ms. V went through it. We all still edit each other's stuff. So just reach out to us if you all want some help. We're happy to help with that to make sure it can be the best it can be to give you all a better chance of getting some extra money. And if nobody else has anything to add or anything to say, I just want to thank you all for participating with us, for logging on. This is our last virtual workshop for the foreseeable future. We might do some later. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, actually. But for right now, this is our last virtual workshop. So thank you all for participating. We love seeing your faces, and seriously, reach out to us if you have any needs at all.